The engineers stared at the aircraft in silence. Extra guns jammed into the nose, armor plates where none were supposed to be, fuel lines rerouted, weight limits violated, flight manuals ignored. One of them finally spoke the words everyone was thinking. This thing will never fly. They weren't wrong. On paper, this B-25 Mitchell bomber was a death trap, unstable, overweight and aerodynamically broken, a flying contradiction. But war does not care about paper. And in the spring of 1943, over the boiling waters of the South Pacific, this impossible aircraft would do something no bomber was ever meant to do. In just 3 days, it would tear through Japanese shipping lanes, sink 12 enemy vessels, and permanently rewrite the rules of aerial warfare. This is the story of the B-25 gunship they said should never exist, and the crew who proved them wrong. A war that demanded the impossible. By 1943, the Pacific War was brutal, chaotic, and unforgiving. Japan controlled vast stretches of ocean. Their supply ships moved freely between island strongholds, delivering troops, fuel, ammunition, and food. As long as those ships sailed, the Japanese war machine stayed alive. The Allies tried everything. High-altitude bombing? Too inaccurate. Torpedo attacks? Too slow and vulnerable. Fighter strafing? Too limited in firepower. The enemy adapted faster than doctrine, and that's when desperation gave birth to a dangerous idea. What if a bomber didn't bomb? What if it hunted? The radical idea no one wanted. At a dusty airfield in Australia, a small group of engineers and combat pilots gathered around a standard B-25 Mitchell. The B-25 was reliable. Twin-engine, medium bomber, built to drop bombs from altitude. But one pilot, battle-hardened, blunt, and tired of watching ships escape, pointed at the glass nose and said, "Rip it out." They did. The bombardier's position was removed entirely. In its place, guns. Not one, not two. 8 forward-firing 50-caliber machine guns. Then came more madness. Side-mounted guns, top turret repositioned, extra armor bolted on. The aircraft was transformed into something terrifying, a flying battering ram. Engineers protested. It was overweight, unbalanced, too much recoil, too much drag. One even wrote in his report, "Aircraft will be uncontrollable under sustained fire." But the pilots didn't care. They weren't building a bomber. They were building a predator. First flight of the impossible. The first test flight was tense. The runway stretched ahead as engines roared. Everyone expected disaster. The B-25 lumbered forward. Slow, heavy, unstable. Then, somehow, it lifted off. Not graceful, not smooth, but airborne. The pilot brought it back around and landed. Silence, then laughter. Because it flew. Barely, but it flew. And now it was going to war. Meeting the crew. The crew assigned to the gunship were not rookies. They were men who had seen ships survive bombing runs. Men who had watched friends die to flak. Men who understood that low-level attack meant seconds from death. Their mission was simple. Fly at wave-top height. Charge straight at enemy ships. Open fire and never pull away. No evasive maneuvers. No second chances. If the engines failed, they would die in the sea. If the gunners hesitated, they would die under Japanese fire. And if the engineers were right, the plane itself might kill them. They named it anyway. A nickname spoken half in sarcasm, half in hope. The Strafer. The first mission came at dawn. Japanese transport ships spotted near a narrow channel. Light escort. Heavy confidence. The B-25 gunship descended until the ocean spray touched its belly. The crew could see sailors on deck. The pilot didn't climb. He pushed forward. At 300 miles per hour. When the guns opened, the aircraft shook violently. 8 machine guns unleashed a wall of fire so dense it looked solid. The ship's bridge exploded. Anti-aircraft guns vanished in sparks and blood. Fuel drums ignited. The pilot held the trigger. The ship burned, then listed, then sank. The crew didn't cheer. They were already lining up the next target. By nightfall, 4 ships were gone. The engineers back at base stared at the radio reports in disbelief. Word spread fast. Japanese sailors began reporting a new kind of aircraft, one that didn't bomb, didn't turn away, didn't fear flak. They called it a flying destroyer. Convoys broke formation. Gunners fired wildly. Ships zigzagged uselessly. But panic doesn't stop bullets. On the second day, weather turned ugly. Low clouds, heavy winds, perfect cover. The gunship struck again. This time, escorted by fighters, it dove into a convoy protected by anti-aircraft fire. Flak tore holes in the wings. Hydraulic lines ruptured. One engine coughed. The pilot stayed low. Closer, closer. The guns fired nonstop. Ammo belts ran dry, then another gun opened. A destroyer erupted in flame. A cargo ship split open at the waterline. A fuel tanker became a floating inferno. By sunset, 5 more ships were sinking. The B-25 limped home with damage, so severe the ground crew couldn't believe it stayed airborne. The aircraft was patched with scrap metal and sent back out. Day 3, the legend is born. The third day was the deadliest. Japanese escorts were ready. Every gun pointed skyward. The B-25 charged anyway. Tracer fire filled the air. The cockpit glass shattered. The nose guns overheated. The pilot lined up the final ship. A heavily loaded transport. The crew fired until smoke poured from the barrels. The ship exploded. Then another. And another. When the gunship returned, barely holding together, the count was complete. 12 Japanese ships destroyed in 3 days. No bomber had ever done that. No doctrine predicted it. No engineer approved it. But war remembered it. The aftermath. The impossible B-25 changed everything. New squadrons were formed. More gunships built. Low-level strafing became standard. Japanese shipping losses skyrocketed. And the engineers? They stopped saying impossible. They started asking how to build more. What made it work? It wasn't just guns. It was psychology. Ships weren't trained to fight aircraft that attacked like torpedo boats. Gunners froze. Officers hesitated. The B-25 gunship didn't give them time to think. It attacked like an animal. Fast, close, relentless. History often celebrates what was planned. But wars are won by what shouldn't have worked. By men who ignored manuals. By machines that broke rules. By ideas born from desperation and courage. That B-25 gunship was never supposed to exist. Never supposed to fly. Never supposed to survive. Yet in 3 days it changed the Pacific War forever. Because sometimes the most dangerous weapon isn't the one built by design. It's the one built by refusal to accept impossible.